UFC Fight Night Lewis versus Daukaus, full card prediction, 14 fights on the entire fight card. The main event with Derrick Lewis and Chris Daukaus. No matter what anyone says, I really doubt that fight's going the distance. I mean, Chris Daukaus 4-0 in the UFC. Every single win has been a knockout, and Derrick Lewis, win or loss, the only times he's gone to a decision have been against Ilir Latifi, Blago Ivanov, and then Francis Ngannou. Those are the only times, and then Roy Nelson right there, but he's very, very durable. This fight is not going to go to a decision. I mean, the past 3 fights for Derrick Lewis have all been knockouts. I expect Derrick Lewis to get a lucky 4th or 5th round knockout, or we're just going to see Daukaus outspeed him and get the knockout, something like that. That fight is not going to go to a decision. We got Wonderboy Thompson and Belal Muhammad in the co-main events. The odds are a little bit spread out for my liking, but I mean, he's going to have the height, he's going to have the reach, the kickboxing, but there is the wrestling of Belal Muhammad. Really good fight there in the welterweight division. Got Amanda Lemos and Angela Hill at strawweight. Very, very solid fight. Raphael Assunção, Ricky Simón at bantamweight. Mateusz Gamrot and Diego Ferreira. Mateusz Gamrot, one of the biggest prospects, I would say, in the lightweight division. There's Arman Yukian, Rafael Vaziev, Joel Alvarez. Mateusz Gamrot is one of those guys that is climbing that lightweight division. We got Darren Elkins, Cub Swanson, 2 veterans of the game. In featherweight, got GM3 Dustin Stoltzfus at middleweight. Victor Henry coming in on short notice, gonna be fighting Raoni Barcelos. We got Justin Tafa, Harry Hunsucker. Low-level heavyweight competition, but decent fight nonetheless. Melissa Gatto, Sijara, Eubanks at flyweight, not bantamweight. Charles Jourdain, Andre Ewell at featherweight. Raquel, Pennington, Macy, Chiasson also gonna be at featherweight. That's another fight. If you're thinking about all the girls that are in bantamweight division, not that many fighters in the women's featherweight division. Some girls are starting to think a little bit because they know it's much easier to get the title shot with Amanda Nunes if they just move up 10 pounds in the weight class to the featherweight division. And Macy, Chiasson, and Raquel Pennington are doing exactly that. We got Don'Tale Mayes at Josh Parisian at heavyweight, and Matt Sayles and Jordan Leavitt in the lightweight division right there. But and these are the fights we are going to be doing in today's full card prediction. If you guys like the channel, like the things we do on the channel, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on those post notifications, as well as go subscribe to my second channel, BERT MMA News. But with all of that being said, let's get into the first fight right here in the UFC lightweight division. Matt Sayles and Jourdain Leavitt, or Leavitt, in the lightweight division. Still trying to get that pronunciation correct. But yeah, Jourdain Leavitt with 8 wins and 1 loss. A very, very solid grappling. Out of all of his wins outside of the UFC, and I guess inside the UFC, they all have to do with him taking it down and beating you there, or just taking it down. In the case with Matt Wyman, where it was literally just 1 takedown 22 seconds in to that very first round, and he got TKO'd with his back of the head just landing on the floor. Absolutely crazy that a guy, like, if you look at a guy like Jourdain Leavitt, you wouldn't really expect him to be able to pick up someone, slam them, and just TKO them. That doesn't seem like a thing he can do, but with that shows that he has a lot of power, a lot of explosiveness with the takedowns that he does land. He's got some good arm triangles, anacondas. Heel hook was in there by 17 seconds of the very first round. If you're looking at this fight, it is 50-50. Either way, I think it's going to be a grappling domination from Jourdain Leavitt, or it's going to be a striking domination from Matt Sayles. It's very one-dimensional, and whoever's going to win. If Matt Sayles is going to win, he's going to have very on-point takedown defense to be able to defend pretty much every single takedown out there and just kind of outpoint Jourdain Leavitt on the feet. We don't really know how good Matt Sayles' grappling and wrestling has improved in the last couple of years. As, I mean, he is 8-3. His last fight was 2 years ago. He lost a fight by a submission against a guy that was mainly a grappler and wrestler, just like Jourdain Leavitt. Before that, lost to Shayman Moraes. Not necessarily a wrestler or grappler, but looking at the fact that his last loss and his last fight 2 years ago was a submission loss to a good grappler, it doesn't really take away too much from Matt Sayles, because I do believe that Mitchell is a better grappler than Jourdain Leavitt, of course, but it does make you wonder how much has that grappling and submission defense improve for Matt Sayles? I really do not know. I've looked through a little bit of the training footage that I have been able to find. Looking on Instagram, couldn't really find too much of any clues or any hintings to see how good the grappling has improved. So we really don't know. It's one of those fights. We don't know how well Matt Sayles has improved in that 2-year layoff. So it's one of the fights. I don't know if you want to bet on it. You can do it if you want. It's a very 50-50, of course, like the betting odds do say. But I'm going to go with Jourdain Leavitt. I mean, we've seen his last couple of fights. The last one against a way better wrestler and grappler than Matt Sayles. Very, very back and forth, very competitive wrestling and grappling match. If he's having that close of a fight with Claudio, destroying Matt Weidman, destroying Luke Flores, and so many other guys, even Levon Lewis right there, he should have no problem out-grappling and out-wrestling to a submission on Matt Sayles. Again, I don't take me as an 100% type of fight right here. It's definitely not that. We don't know how well he's improved in grappling and wrestling, so I wouldn't be surprised if we get a shocking 29-28 decision for Matt Sayles, but I'm going to go leave it by a submission, specifically in the second round right there. Really good fight in the lightweight division. Don'Tale Mayes and Josh Parisian in the heavyweight division. Both guys, I mean, they're kind of at the end, or kind of towards the bottom tier of the heavyweight division. Josh Parisian has shown not to really have the best clinch work. I mean, against very, very small opponents. Roque Martinez almost beat Josh Parisian just using the clinch work, just using a little bit of wrestling and grappling as well. And Roque is really not the biggest guy. His last weigh-in result was at 249 pounds. He's not having to cut weight for heavyweight. He came into that fight 15, 16 pounds less than Josh Parisian and still was able to out-clinch and out-wrestle a little bit Josh Parisian in that fight. Same thing was said for Parker Porter. Parker had the cardio advantage, went out there, just kind of use a little bit of the clinch work, and again, another one of the guys that is very small for the heavyweight division, even at that small frame that Parker Porter does have. Even though he is 263 pounds, he's a very, very small guy. A lot of that weight is built on fat, so I was very surprised that Parker was able to do so good in the clinch, and even had the better cardio. So I believe the cardio is going to play a factor for Josh Parisian. His cardio really does not do that good towards the end of the second and into that third round. Don'Tale Mayes being the better boxer, having a slightly better cardio, being a little bit bigger of a fighter as well. He's a little bit taller, a little bit lengthier, a little bit bulkier, I would believe. I believe the game plan here is really just going to be to play more of a counter-punching game in the boxing. He's more technical, he's got more power, he's going to lay more volume, I believe, just playing that counter, using the height and using that reach. But when Josh Parisian kind of slows that distance, or sorry, not slows, closes that distance on Don'Tale Mayes, that is where you need to start draining the cardio of Josh Parisian. That's where you need to grab, kind of bear hug Josh Parisian, get his back to the cage, foot stomp him a little bit, whatever you have to do to kind of limit the cardio and limit the effectiveness of Josh Parisian through the later rounds. That is what Don'Tale Mayes is going to have to do, and that is why it's one of the fights I'm really not too sure if we're going to see a finish. Parisian's last win was a decision win. Don'Tale Mayes' last win was a decision win against the same guy, Roque Martinez, for both of them. So I don't know how likely we're going to see a finish. That's why I'm going to go Don'Tale Mayes to win the fight by a decision. I believe he's going to play that counter-punching game, use the height, use the reach, and when Josh does close the distance, because he will find a way to, that's when you clinch, limit that cardio of Josh Parisian. And I think it's a fairly easy prediction right there for Don'Tale Mayes to win the fight by a decision. I believe Josh is going to be eating a lot of shots. I mean, he comes in super hard with his pressure striking, but with that height and with that reach, and with the fact that his striking defense really isn't that good, I see Josh Parisian's face looking pretty beat up towards the end of this fight. But overall, pretty decent fight in the heavyweight division. Definitely going to go Don'Tale Mayes to win the fight. I'm going to go 30-27. I don't see any rounds going Parisian. I believe it's just going to be Don'Tale Mayes slightly edging out every single round. So Don'Tale Mayes, a 30-27 decision. Very solid fight in the heavyweight division. Raquel Pennington and Macy Chiasson in the featherweight division. 7 wins and 1 loss, and then 12 wins and 8 losses right there. Now, of course, you may be looking at just the record of Macy Chiasson and Raquel Pennington and say, oh, Macy Chiasson is probably going to win the fight. They're nowhere near the same amount of experience. Raquel Pennington has been fighting in the UFC for a very, very long time, all the way since 2013 and has fought some very, very legit opponents in her UFC career. Beat Roxanne Modafferi, lost to a former champion in Jessica Andrade, lost to another former champion in Holly Holm, both by split decision, beat a champion by second round submission, fought a title challenger, beat her as well, beat a champion in Meerschaert, lost to the champion Amanda Nunes, lost to a former champion in Jourdain the Randomy, beat a top 5 women's bantamweight fighter, fought a former champion again, and then won 2 other fights. So the only girl she has lost to, champion. Literally, I mean, even outside the UFC, champion, and then 2 non-champions right there. But every single loss for Raquel Pennington has been to a champion inside the UFC. She's one of those girls that I don't ever see her becoming a champion. I don't think she's really like a top 5 material. But I think everyone outside of that top 5 of the women's bantamweight division, Raquel Pennington can really just go out there, use her experience, use her wrestling and grappling, use that clinch work to really grind out a decision. That's pretty much what she's been doing in her last 5 wins. Grind out a decision on Meerschaert, Elizabeth Phillips, Raoni Aldana, Marion Ronell, and Penny Chiasson. So I believe it's going to be pretty much the same thing. Macy Chiasson has not faced nearly the same competition as Raquel. Raquel only losing to champions, which is still mind-boggling in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, Macy Chiasson's takedown defense is decent. She was able to defend most of the takedowns on Marion Ronell, but Marion was still able to land a takedown in the fight. Lena Landsberg was able to land many takedowns in those fights. So if Lena can land takedowns, if Marion Ronell can land takedowns, you already know. Raquel Pennington's going to land a couple takedowns here and there. Use that clinch work that we did see in the last fight with Penny Chiasson. And I think we're going to see another 30-27 decision. I'm very, very confident the fight will go to a decision. And of course, if it does go there, Raquel Pennington should do enough to win. So my prediction between Raquel Pennington and Macy Chiasson is going to be Raquel Pennington going out there, heavy pressure, closing that crazy height and reach advantage, throwing some really pressure striking, a lot of volume on the feet, a lot of clinch work, a lot of wrestling, a lot of grappling, and I think she'll grind out a decision right there. Really good fight in the featherweight division. Charles Jourdain and Andre Ewell in the featherweight division. Charles Jourdain with 11 wins, 4 losses, and 1 draw. Honestly, doesn't have the best record inside of the UFC. If you look at the record so far, 1 loss, 2 losses, 3 losses, 2 wins, and 1 draw. So he has a losing record inside of the UFC, but every single one of those fights has been very, very competitive. Knocked out Doo Ho Choi, got a split decision against a formerly ranked opponent at featherweight and Andre Fili. A draw with Joshua Coulibaly. 3rd round knockout on Marcelo Rojo. Very, very close fight with Julian Erosa until that 3rd and final round. So even though he has a losing record inside of the UFC, he puts on banger fights every single time. He goes out there, he throws huge shots, really good counterpunching. Not the best wrestling or grappling, but he does have very good counterpunching, a lot of power in his hands, some solid kicks as well. His leg kicking hasn't really been a theme of his career in the past, but he's, of course, going to be landing a lot of leg kicks here. If you're fighting a guy with the stature of Andre Ewell, you're going to be attacking the leg. He's 5 foot 8 inches tall, 75-inch reach, really relies on the movement to get him the win. And if you're fighting Andre Ewell, do exactly what Julio Arce is going to do, what Chris Gutierrez is going to do. Attack the leg of Andre Ewell, limit that movement, and then just absolutely destroy him with the boxing in the later rounds. That's exactly what I see happening here. I see him attacking the leg in the 1st round. I believe it's not going to be too damaged, of course, because Charles Jourdain isn't necessarily the highest of the high leg kicker in the featherweight division, but he is a very solid leg kicker, in my opinion. He's not really known for that, but if you're fighting Andre Ewell, you're going to be going for a lot of leg kicks, but I do believe Charles Jourdain could attack the leg very early in that 1st round, then start to come forward with a lot of different volume, a lot of pressure, a lot of boxing combinations, and that is where we're really going to see the edge in the fight, because really the only way that Andre Ewell wins his fights is using that reach, going in and out, using that movement. Once you take away the movement with those leg kicks, then in the later rounds, you start to pressure, put on those boxing combinations. that is where Charles Jourdain is really going to flourish. So I see this being as a pretty fairly easy prediction. But again, it is MMA. We just saw the last fight with Charles Jourdain doing fairly good. It was a close fight, but then getting caught with a submission on Julian Erosa. I'm not saying that's going to happen again here, but you never know. It's MMA, but I'm going to go Charles Jourdain. I believe he's the better striker. He's going to attack the legs early, and I do believe Charles Jourdain should win the fight by decision. That's tough. I'm gonna go third round knockout. I believe once those leg kicks kind of come into effect, then he's gonna land those boxing combinations much easier. 50-50 on decision or third round knockout. I'm going to go third round knockout. I'm going to go Charles Jourdain by a third round knockout. Really good fight in the featherweight division. Sijara Eubanks and Melissa Gatto in the women's flyweight division. First things first, odds a little bit too spread out in my opinion. For an undefeated girl right here in Melissa Gatto to be a almost 2.5 to 1 underdog on Sijara Eubanks, I think that's a little bit much. I mean, she got a submission win on Carol Rosa, who we actually saw, I believe, beat Sijara Eubanks. I might be mistaken. No. She beat Beshka Head in her last fight, Jocelyn Edwards, all of those girls right there. But overall, she's beating Carol Rosa by a submission while going 4-0 in the UFC over undefeated prospects, Jocelyn Edwards, Vanessa Mello, all of those girls fairly dominantly in all of those fights. Then going out there and destroying Victoria Leonardo in a fight inside the UFC in her first UFC fight right there. I believe the fight should be a little bit closer. The grappling, the wrestling, I don't know who's going to have the advantage. I've looked through the film of Melissa Gatto. Those Brazilian fights are very hard to find. I mean, if you look at the Nikao Cyborg 3, Nikao Cyborg 1, those fights are so hard to find. I found the blurriest footage of her fight with Carol Rosa. Then I found, of course, the UFC fight with Victoria Leonardo. But the Carol Rosa and Victoria Leonardo fights are all I really have to go off of. I mean, her striking looks solid, but Sijara Eubanks is going to be a lot bigger. Being a bantamweight fighter, is going to go out there on the feet, just looking to pressure Melissa Gatto. I believe on the feet that Sijara Eubanks will be a little bit better because she might just go out there, pressure Melissa Gatto, just start throwing really big shots, clinch up, and just use her size advantage to win the fight by decision. But it is MMA. Melissa Gatto did show some solid striking in her last fight. She's going to be 1 inch taller than Sijara Eubanks, 2 inches lengthier than Sijara Eubanks, so there could be a possibility where she keeps a range on the feet, has Sijara Eubanks pressure her, and then maybe she goes down and lands a takedown. We don't know what's going to happen here. It is a very close fight. We did see Sijara fight another undefeated prospect in her last fight in Elise Reed. Went out there, destroyed her by TKO, but Elise Reed's grappling way worse than Melissa Gatto. Melissa Gatto has very solid grappling. Submitting Carol Rosa is a very big feat in my opinion, but yeah, such a hard fight for me to predict. But I'm gonna go I'm gonna go Melissa Gatto. I believe, unlike the last fight with Elise Reed and Sijara Eubanks, I believe Melissa Gatto will be able to defend Sijara Eubanks' takedowns and will be able to land a takedown of her own every now and then. The striking advantage, it's very hard to see who has the advantage, but whoever is going to have the advantage is not going to be by much. It's really going to come down to a takedown and a little bit of ground and pound, maybe a submission attempt or two, and that is really what's going to edge out the decision on the judges' scorecards. And I do believe Melissa Gatto, if she can land a takedown here, which I believe she will be able to land at least 1, possibly 2, I think she could win the fight right here. It's a very close one, not one I am 100% confident in. That, I mean, it should be way closer on those betting odds. I believe it should be -110, -110, but I'm going to go the underdog in Melissa Gatto to win the fight by 29-28, split decision. Very close fight in the women's flyweight division. Justin Tafa and Harry Hunsucker in the heavyweight division. Now, the only things I'm really going to say about this fight, there are 2 outcomes. One outcome is that Justin Tafa goes out there, pressures Harry Hunsucker, just starts throwing absolute bombs and knocks out Harry Hunsucker in the very first round, like he did against Juan Adams, like he did outside the UFC many other times against Dylan Lega, however you say the name, and in all those wins. All of his wins, first or second round knockouts, that's how he's going to win. If Justin Tafa is going to win, it's going to be that first round knockout. The other scenario, the only other possibility, in my opinion, for this fight is going to be Harry Hunsucker by knockout in the second or third round. That is where Justin Tafa, I think he's going to start to fade a little bit. He does throw very heavy shots early on in the fight, and if by some chance that Harry Hunsucker can survive the onslaught early in that first round, go to the second round, go to the third round, he's going to be a little bit taller, a little bit lengthier. That's when he's going to start to throw his big shots and then maybe knock out Justin Tafa. So either a first round knockout for Justin Tafa or a second or third round knockout from Harry Hunsucker. We saw the last fight with Jared Vandeira and Justin Tafa. Justin Tafa did not look good at all in those later rounds, and that's where Harry Hunsucker is really going to flourish in those later rounds. But again, will the fight get to the later rounds? I don't think so. That is why my prediction is going to go Justin Tafa by knockout in the very first round. He's more powerful. He's faster. It's just that those are the only really things you need to have in this low-level heavyweight division type of fight. But yeah, I think first a knockout for Justin Tafa is the main thing that's going to happen. But by some chance, Harry Hunsucker can get past the very first round. All of you out there, live bet Harry Hunsucker right after that, because that is where he can really make a comeback in that second and third round. But yeah, most likely we're going to see a first round knockout. But again, if it goes to that second round, live bet Harry Hunsucker. That's all I got to say. But overall, you got to be logical with it. I mean, the odds are horrendous, but I'm still going to go Justin Tafa to win the fight by knockout in the very first round. Not the best fight in the heavyweight division. Had a little Raoni Barcelos and Victor Henry in the bantamweight division. Victor Henry, I mean, surprisingly has more experience than Raoni Barcelos. I mean, it's absolutely insane the amount of experience this guy has outside of the UFC. And one other thing, let's look at the age. 34 years, 7 months, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, and 3 days. They're literally born 3 days apart from each other. And finally, they will face each other 34 years later in a UFC fight in the bantamweight division. Absolutely insane. I just thought, why not look at that? But if you look right here, Victor Henry is honestly not the worst opponent. I mean, second round submission win on Albert Morales on a, I believe, 7-fight win streak right there. One of which against Kyler Phillips by split decision. That is the main reason he is going to be fighting inside the UFC, because he's beaten UFC fighters. He's beaten Anderson Dos Santos, who's inside the UFC as well right now. So he's definitely worthy of being inside the UFC. Another guy I really want to see fight in the UFC is Denis Lavrentiev, because he did beat Victor Henry. He's 12-2, only losing to Victor Henry and then one other guy. So this guy as well, I believe, should be fighting in the UFC in the near future. But right now we're talking about Victor Henry. The one thing I gotta say, it is so hard to find film on Victor Henry. I spent, I don't know, 45 minutes just to find the film on Victor Henry. Then I had to watch the film, then I had to compare to Raoni and make my prediction. But it was very hard and a very big struggle for me to find the film on Victor Henry. You would think of, for a guy that has 21 wins and 5 losses, he would have a lot of film, but not really. He has the same height as Raoni Barcelos. I'm assuming he has about the same reach from the look of the film that I have watched, maybe a little bit longer than Raoni Barcelos. But overall, I mean, from the stuff I've seen of Victor Henry, he's nowhere near the caliber of fighter of Raoni Barcelos. Raoni's speed is going to be way better than Victor. Raoni's power is going to be a lot better. I don't know how many knockouts he does have in his career. A lot of the wins are submission wins, 6 knockout wins. I don't see many in his recent MMA career. His last knockout win was against Masanori Kanakanara, however you say that name right there. But overall, if he's going to win the fight, if Victor Henry somehow is going to go out there and win this fight, it's going to be a submission. If Raoni Barcelos goes out there and for some reason goes for a takedown and then gets caught with a triangle, that would be the main way I see Victor Henry winning, would be a submission from the bottom position by triangle, by guillotine, by something like that, and getting a second or third round submission on Raoni Barcelos. But Raoni, we know, also has very good wrestling and grappling. His only loss is a rear naked choke submission loss back in 2014, and the other one was a decision on Timur Valiev. But he's shown amazing striking in the UFC. I don't think that Victor Henry is gonna beat him on the feet by any means. He doesn't have the takedown defense or the wrestling to go out there and take down Raoni Barcelos. So overall, it is going to be a striking fight. And for a guy like Raoni Barcelos to go out there, put on a clinic on Khalid Taha, get a unanimous decision on Saeed Nurmagomedov right there, that's absolutely insane. Also beating guys like Chris Gutierrez, Kurt Holloway, Dan Moret, Bobby Maffet, all of these guys. The striking is absolutely unbelievable. Really good boxing, solid leg kicks and body kicks. It's going to be a striking clinic yet again. And not to mention that Victor Henry is taking the fight on short notice as well. The original fight was Trevin Jones and Raoni Barcelos. So all of those things considered, grappling and wrestling, that is the main way that Victor Henry is going to win. But for that to happen, he needs to land a takedown, and I don't see that happening. So Raoni Barcelos by a decision right there. 30-27 on all judges' scorecards. Really good fight in the bantamweight division. Gerald Meerschaert and Dustin Stoltzfus in the middleweight division. So far in the UFC, Dustin Stoltzfus has not been doing too good. I mean, 13 wins and 3 losses in his MMA career. 0-2 inside the UFC. With that fight against Joseph Pfeiffer, I'm going to be quite honest, I think he lost that fight. I mean, he was losing all the way up until that arm injury, and then, yeah, he got the win. I mean, I don't know how they gave him the contract after pretty much losing all the way up to that arm injury, but now that he's fought inside the UFC, hasn't really done too good as well. Fought some solid opponents, Rodolfo Vieira and Kyle Daukaus, lost pretty dominantly on Kyle Daukaus, lost pretty dominantly on Rodolfo Vieira as well by a submission in the third and final round. But Rodolfo was out striking him, he was out grappling, he was out wrestling, out pretty much everything. Gerald Meerschaert has better striking than Rodolfo Vieira. The grappling, he's not going to be better than Rodolfo, but he can definitely also go out there and land a submission, just as he did in his last fight with Makhmud Muradov and Bartosz Fabinski. So I think this is a fairly easy prediction. I think the odds should be minus 300, minus 350. They should be way, way more spread out. Very, very confident prediction right there. Gerald Meerschaert should go out there, pressure strike him on the feet, stay away from the big shots, because we know the chin of Gerald Meerschaert really is not the best, but he'll land the takedown and he'll get the submission in the first or second round. A really good fight in the middleweight division. Darren Elkins and Cub Swanson in the featherweight division. This is a pretty easy prediction for me, because not in terms of who's gonna win the fight, but in how they're gonna win the fight. We already know if Darren Elkins is gonna win the fight, it's gonna be him, his whole face having blood all over it due to the scar tissue. We already know that's how every single fight ends for Darren Elkins, but if he's gonna win, it's gonna be him with all that blood laying on top of Cub Swanson, landing ground and pound and winning the fight by decision. That would be how Darren Elkins would win the fight. The last 2 wins, Derek Minner by ground and pound TKO. The fight before that, rear naked choke submission on Eduardo Garagori. Before that, it wasn't doing too good, but he fought some very legit guys. Nate Landwehr in a fight he arguably could have won. Ryan Hall, very good grappler, and Ricardo Lama. So nothing too bad there on those losses, but now he's fighting Cub Swanson, who has very, very solid takedown defense. He's way, way better striker, has got good submissions as well, and overall I think should just outstrike Darren Elkins for 3 straight rounds. Of course, Darren Elkins being Darren Elkins, he'll land the takedown. He always does. He'll land 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have no idea how many takedowns, but he always finds a way to land a couple of takedowns. Will he use those takedowns to win the fight? I don't know. It's very, very possible that is what's going to happen, because he is a very, very solid wrestler. But Cub Swanson being the much better striker, we saw that in the Daniel Pineda fight, as well in the fight with Kron Gracie, which is an absolute war. But overall, I do think the fight does go all the way. Either way, if Cub Swanson's going to win, it's going to be a hard-fought striking decision, getting taken down a couple of times here and there as well. If Darren Elkins going to win, it's going to be him very, very bloody from Cub Swanson's onslaughts on the feet, and then landing the takedowns and winning a decision. But overall, I'm going to go Cub Swanson. I believe he'll defend most of the takedowns and win the fight in the striking. But I cannot wait for that one. 2 veterans of the featherweight division, Cub Swanson and Darren Elkins. I cannot wait. My prediction, Cub Swanson by a decision. Really good fight in the featherweight division. Diego Ferreira and Mateusz Gamrot in the lightweight division. 36 years old and 31 years old. The prime of his MMA career with 19 wins and 1 loss. The only loss in Mateusz Gamrot's professional MMA career has been against Guram Kututaladze. That is the only loss there, and in my opinion, I do not think he lost. I don't think he lost that fight. I believe that fight should have gone to Mateusz Gamrot. He should be a 20-0 undefeated UFC fighter right now. Really good wrestler. That is his main factor in which he wins his fights, but he's got the striking too. He showed that in the fight with Scott Holson, going out there getting a second round knockout on Scott Holson, showing striking in that fight, then starching Jeremy Stephens, taking him down and Kimura-ing him in the very first round. Very, very easy win there as well. 6 knockouts, 5 submissions, and 8 decisions. Very good wrestling, very good grappling, and really good counter striking as well. I believe the fight, he's going to be taller, not as lengthy as Diego Ferreira, but I believe he will have the better grappling than Diego Ferreira, and I believe he will have the better volume on the feet than Diego Ferreira, as well as a better power than Diego Ferreira. Maybe Diego can go out there and let a little bit more volume. The volume situation can be very even, because we haven't really seen a fight where Mateusz Gamrot just strikes the whole entire time. We have seen the fact that he does have really good counters in the fight with Scott Holtzman as well, but overall, this is a very, very interesting fight. Diego, I mean, he's on a 2-fight losing streak. To Benil Dariush is about to fight Islam Makhachev. Then he lost to Gregor Gillespie by TKO. I think he's going to lose again. I believe Mateusz Gamrot is the better striker, not by much. I mean, it's very, very close on the feet. Neither guy has their base in kickboxing and boxing and Muay Thai or anything like that. They're both grapplers and wrestlers. But again, I do believe Gamrot can keep the fight at range a little bit on the feet and just counter Diego Ferreira, eventually countering and then going for a takedown, landing that, and then I believe we're going to see a finish on the ground. Mateusz Gamrot is that guy that once he joined the UFC, he's looking for a lot of finishes. He's going to be going for the finish a lot in this fight with Diego Ferreira. So my prediction is going to be a late 2nd or 3rd round knockout. I'm going to go 3rd round knockout against Diego. No, sorry, not knockout. 3rd round submission, specifically by a rear naked choke submission. His grappling is slightly better. His wrestling is slightly better. His striking is slightly better. I believe every facet of the game, Mateusz is a little bit better, and I believe after a while, I did see in the last fight with Gregor Gillespie, Diego Ferreira did gas out a little bit. I think the same thing happens here. Mateusz Gamrot by submission in the 3rd and final round. A really good fight in the lightweight division. Raphael Assunção and Ricky Simón in the bantamweight division. If we look at the UFC rankings as of right now, if I can find him, I don't know if he's still on here. Number 12, Raphael Assunção, and for some reason, I have no idea why, unranked Ricky Simón. I still have no idea how he is not ranked. I believe he can beat guys like Song Yadong. He can definitely beat Raphael Assunção. Of course, he can beat Frankie Edgar. He can beat Pedro Munoz. He can beat Marlon Moraes. He can beat so many of the guys in here in the UFC bantamweight division. He should definitely be a ranked opponent by now, and I believe he will be after this one. 10 years, the age differential, 29 years old and 39 years old. 1 inch in height goes towards Ricky Simón. 3.5 inches for reach goes to Ricky Simón. The 3-fight win streak compared to the 3-fight losing streak. Losing to Marlon Moraes by submission, losing to Corey Sandhagen in a dominant decision, and then getting knocked out. While Ricky Simón getting really good wins over Ray Borg, destroying Gaetano Perello, and then destroying Brian Kelleher. So, should be a fairly easy prediction. I don't know why you guys looked up Ricky Simón versus Raphael Assunção prediction. Raphael is getting slower, his takedown defense is going down, his wrestling is going down, his striking is going down. Everything about Raphael is going down as he is a 39-year-old fighter. Ricky Simón, everything is going up. The wrestling is getting better, the striking is getting better, the grappling is getting better. This one should be an all-out domination, and I'm going to say I expect a finish. I mean, if you want to break into that top 15, if you want to really break it into that top 15, you go in there and you get the finish. Ricky Simón, I believe, is going to go out there and he's going to get the finish. I'm calling rear naked or arm triangle choke submission against Raphael Assunção. Really good fight in the bantamweight division. Amanda Lemos and Angela Hill in the women's strawweight division. Not the best record, I gotta say. Angela Hill, 13 wins and 10 losses. As I said, not the best record, but the record does not tell the full story. If you look at the girls, she is fighting to get that record. Carla Esparza, Tecia Torres, Rose Namajunas, Jessica Andrade, Nina Nunes, Randa Marcos, Courtney Casey in there, Yan Xiaonan, Ariane Carnelosi, Loma Lugbumi, Claudia Gadelia, Michelle Watterson, Tecia Torres. Very legit opponents in all of these fights. Most of them are very close fights as well. But overall, this fight should be a fairly simple one for me to predict. I mean, we saw the last fight with a girl that has a lot of power, comes forward with heavy pressure in Tecia Torres. I mean, Amanda Lemos is kind of going to do the same thing and come forward with a lot of pressure, a lot of powerful shots, but she will also mix in the takedowns. I mean, I do believe that Angela Hill's biggest weakness is going to be in the wrestling and grappling game. Amanda Lemos, she's got the power, of course. We obviously do know that. But I do believe Amanda is really going to pressure Angela Hill in those early rounds, take her down, and drain her out early with the wrestling, with a heavy pressure in that first and second round. That's where Angela Hill, her cardio is going to go a little bit down. She has been in 5-round fights before, so I don't know if the cardio is going to go down too much, but I think she's really going to try to get that cardio down enough to where in the third round, that's where Angela is going to be moving, not really moving her head as much, and that is where Amanda Lemos is going to go out there and land that shot. We've seen her in all of her fights in the UFC getting finishes, except for the fight with Mizuki Inu, getting a submission win on Miranda Granger, decision win on Mizuki Inu, knockout on Lavina Souza, and a knockout win on Montserrat Ruiz. So I'm expecting not a first round knockout, not a second round knockout, but a third round knockout. Once Angela Hill gets a little bit tired, her head movement is not really there, her movement in the cage really isn't there. Once the head movement and the movement starts to go a little bit down ever so slightly, that is where the shots are going to get much cleaner for Amanda Lemos, and that is where she will land that really big shot, and I think that's where she's going to knock her out. So I'm going to go Amanda Lemos by knockout in the third and final round. The only time she's ever been finished was an armbar on Randa Marcos, the rear naked on Rose Namajunas, and a first round rear naked on Carla Esparza. I think this is going to be the first time she gets knocked out. Even with Tecia Torres, I believe Amanda Lemos has even more power than Tecia Torres. So that's my prediction. Amanda Lemos by knockout in the third and final round. A really good fight in the women's strawweight division. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson and Belal Muhammad in the welterweight division. I'm going to say right now, decision. This fight is going to go to a decision. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, 16 wins, 5 losses, and 1 draw. I don't even remember the last fight this man has won a fight by knockout. The last time was against an old Johnny Hendricks and an old Jake Ellenberger, and his only loss was a fluke knockout loss on Anthony Pettis. So those are the only circumstances where Wonderboy is getting the knockout or he himself is getting knocked out is fluke scenarios with the Superman punch on Anthony Pettis, or against very old opponents like Jake Ellenberger or Johnny Hendricks, which of course I believe Belal Muhammad is not an older competitor. He's only like 29 years old, so I don't believe we're going to see a knockout. The last time that Belal got a finish himself was literally the fight with Takashi Sato. Third round rear naked, and then a 1 knockout loss right there, and then a third round knockout, but he's literally had 1 finish in the last 4 years. So 1 finish in the last 4 years, and then Stephen Wonderboy Thompson with 1 finish in the last 5 years. I find it very hard to believe this fight is gonna go to this. Gonna be a finish, gonna be a knockout, gonna be a submission or anything like that. So it's gonna be a decision. So that's the first thing we gotta look at. It will go to a decision. Belal needs to wrestle. I cannot stress this enough. Belal Muhammad needs to go out there, take a Wonderboy down over and over and over and over again and grind out a decision. We saw what he did against Demian Maia. He defended a lot of the takedowns on Demian Maia, kept the fight on the feet, and won the unanimous decision. Against Steven Wonderboy Thompson, he needs to do the exact same thing except for not defending the takedowns, but landing the takedowns on Wonderboy Thompson, and I don't know if he can do so. We saw the last fight with Thompson and Gilbert Burns. Gilbert did go out there, land the takedowns, and use them to win the fight by a 29-28 decision, but Belal, compared to Gilbert Burns, nowhere near the same in the wrestling and grappling department. So I'm going to say that Belal Muhammad will not land the takedown. The fight will stay on the feet, and Wonderboy Thompson should just kickbox, of course, to a decision. He's going to land at range. He's going to be the taller opponent. He's going to be the lengthier opponent by quite a lot. He's going to stay at range, jab, 1-2, leg kicks, body kicks, side kicks, all the things that Wonderboy Thompson usually does, and he's going to defend most, if not all, of the takedowns. I don't think the odds are where they should be. Probably should have Thompson minus 175, minus 180, because there is that potential of Belal to just grind for 3 straight rounds and win a close wrestling and grappling decision. You never know. That is a possibility, so I would not do anything with minus 250. That's a little bit crazy in my opinion, especially after losing the last fight to a wrestler and grappler in a Gilbert Burns. While you got Belal Muhammad, who also has some pretty decent wrestling and grappling skills, I'm still going to go Thompson by decision, but I do worry about the takedown defense in the fight. But overall, I'm going to go Wonderboy Thompson to win the fight by a 29-28 decision. Really good fight in the welterweight division. Derek Lewis and Chris Daukaus in the heavyweight division. 5 rounds of action. Now, will it go 5 rounds? I'm going to give you an answer. It's going to be no. I really don't think Derek Lewis, Chris Daukaus is going to go to a decision. Chris Daukaus, all 4 wins in the UFC have been knockouts. Knocking out Parker Porter, knocking out Rodrigo Nascimento, knocking out Alexei Oleinik, and then knocking out Shamil Abdurrahimov. Whereas Derek Lewis knocking out Curtis Blades, knocking out Alexei Oleinik, decisioning Ilir Latifi, and then getting a decision on Blago Ivanov. But those are 3-round fights, and it really didn't seem like Derek Lewis was landing anything of significance. He wasn't really even trying to go for the knockout. And in both of those fights, Blago and Ilir Latifi were wrestling and grappling in the fight, and that was the reason Lewis was not able to actually land the knockout. Chris Daukaus is not going to wrestle and grapple, so that is one thing we can clear the air from. This is not going to be a wrestling and grappling match. It's going to either be Derek Lewis in the 3rd, 4th round, landing some crazy overhand right knockout and getting the win on Chris Daukaus, or we're going to see Chris Daukaus just use his speed advantage, go inside 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, land some overhand rights, some left hooks, some uppercuts here and there, just go in and out very, very well, use the speed advantage, use the volume advantage, and just really win those early rounds. And once Derek Lewis gets to the later rounds, where he starts to get a little bit more tired, gets a little like he usually does in most of his fights, that is where Chris Daukaus is going to stop with the speed, and then he's going to go for his own power, like he did against Shamil Abdurrahimov. Early, against Shamil Abdurrahimov, he was really just trying to outspeed Shamil, but once Shamil got a little bit reckless in that 2nd round, got a little bit tired, his movement started to fade a little bit, that is when he really started to throw the combinations and throw way more powerful shots, and that is exactly what's going to happen here. Once Derek Lewis starts to fade in those later rounds, Daukaus will start to put on the pressure, increase the intensity, increase the power, increase the volume, increase the pressure, and that is where Daukaus will knock him out. So my prediction right here is a 3rd or 4th round knockout from Chris Daukaus. Again, it's Derek Lewis. You don't know what's going to happen. Derek could land an uppercut like he did against Curtis Blades, could land a big right hook, a big right overhand. You have no idea. Maybe it's a left hook. I have no idea. Derek Lewis surprises us every single time. Could happen again, I do not know. My prediction, Chris Daukaus to win the fight by knockout in the 3rd or 4th round. Really good fight in the heavyweight division. But yeah, guys, that is my full card prediction for UFC Fight Night Lewis versus Daukaus. 14 fights on the entire fight card. I got Chris Daukaus by knockout in the 3rd or 4th round. I got Steven Wonderboy Thompson by a 29-28 decision. I got Amanda Lemos winning that fight by a knockout in the 3rd and final round. I got Ricky Simón by a rear naked choke submission, maybe an arm triangle as well. I got Mateusz Gamrot later on in the fight, second or third round by a submission. I got Swanson by a decision. I got Gerald Meerschaert by a submission. Raoni Barcelos by a decision. Justin Tafa by knockout. Gatto by a decision. Jourdain, third round knockout. Raquel Pennington decision. Macy decision. And Jourdain Leavitt, possibly a submission is possible, and maybe a decision. One of those two right there. But overall, it is a very, very solid fight card. UFC Fight Night Lewis versus Daukaus. If you guys liked the video, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and put your predictions in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching the video. We'll see you in the next one. Wait! Subscribe to the second channel, BERT MMA News, for all thing MMA news. So subscribe to that one, subscribe to this one, and we'll see you in the next one. Let's go.